agenda is call the roll. I'll do this with a roll call voice vote. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
I'm present. Oh,
It's on.
okay. I am here.
We're going to try this a little different. We'll do this introduction one more time. Welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee meeting for the City of Franklin. The first item on the agenda is call to order. I'll do this with a roll call vote. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Here.
Alderman Baggett, how do you vote?
Present.
And the chair votes present also. I guess let the minutes show that Alderman Potts is not here yet. Is he coming?
You may or may not be.
Okay, all right. Second item on the agenda is the setting of the agenda. And if there are any changes or any deletions or additions to the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to that effect. If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Does anyone have
So
any
moved.
changes? So moved. Proper motion is second.
Second.
Let's do a roll call vote on that then. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Baggett, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes to that also. Next item on the agenda is any comments from any citizens that wish to make a comment. I don't see anyone jumping up at the microphone at this time, so we'll just continue on with the meeting. Let's go then to approval of minutes. And I'm assuming we have two, the February the 13th and February the 20th to approve. Okay. Any additions, corrections, or deletions to the minutes? Let's do the 13th first.
You can do them at
Do them both. We'll do the 13th and the 20th. Any corrections or deletions to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Move to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Motion second. Let's do a roll call vote on those. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Baggett, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes on that also. Those minutes have been approved. Next item on the agenda is new business, and that's a budget presentation from the Community and Economic Development. Who is leading that?
Just give a opener.
Yes.
This is the third of four program areas with which you'll be getting the budgets presented. Today is the program areas under Assistant City Administrator Vernon Girth's purview. That's Community Economic Development. You see them on the screen, starting with the Franklin Transit Authority.
Well, it's been good for you to see you today.
Well, it's nice to be
We
here.
only see each other maybe once or twice a
I
year.
know, right?
Christmas time, Santa Claus, and this
And
time
now.
right here.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for having us. We are honored to be here today and present our budget. Of course, the outline is the purpose of the department, the organizational chart, our base budget request, overall highlights, and the summary. So the purpose of our department, the Franklin Transit Authority connects people and places by providing efficient, safe, and affordable transportation services. Our responsibilities include the planning, operations, and management of the small system, the public transit system in Franklin. We operate 6 days a week. We have fixed route service, and we have the TOD, which is the Transit on Demand, which is the prearranged curb-to-curb service that is within the city of Franklin, including Cool Springs. TMA is the contractor of record for the operations and management of the Franklin Transit Authority, and we are a regional leader in customizing innovative, environmentally friendly multimodal transportation solutions for employers and communities. All employees are TMA employees. For this year, we are excited to announce some of our highlights. Excited to report that the Franklin Transit ridership is trending up, and we are estimating at least a 10% increase in ridership system-wide from the previous year. So estimated 92,400 passenger trips. This largest increase of this is on our TOD service, and which is our response service. TMA has increased the capacity and coverage of the TOD service as we had reached capacity this year, within the year, and we're turning folks down, and we don't want to do that. So we increased our capacity to meet that need, and in addition, we have developed a fantastic program in partnership with Williamson County High School, specifically Franklin High School and Centennial, that utilizes our Todd service. So that has been very successful and is growing big time. The Franklin Transit Board is currently working with consultants to do a transit vision plan citywide for the Franklin Transit Authority and the transit service. We have procured, TMA has procured 4 new vehicles in the past 6 months for the Franklin Transit Service. This was in response to the void we had because of the pandemic when we couldn't get vehicles, so we're still trying to catch up. So we have been able to purchase 4, which has been much needed. Just to note, the microtransit service that we have discussed with you in recent years has been delayed until the transit vision plan for the study for the city of Franklin has been completed and Franklin Transit Authority makes a decision as to how that will go and consider the recommendations that come out of the study. The funds for the project remain with Franklin Transit at this time and will be used upon recommendation from the Franklin Transit Authority. Like I mentioned earlier, TMA and Franklin Transit, we have a wonderful partnership with Franklin High School and Centennial High School, specifically with their special needs students who are going from school to work, school to life, school to, after they leave high school, what will their life look like? And they will become very dependent on transit, obviously, for real-life transit experience, like mobility to jobs and education, further education needs and community involvement, and just the everyday quality of life things. It's a wonderful program and is expanding to meet the necessary need. TMA Group has achieved full staff employment with Franklin Transit. Statistics, like I said, estimated 92,400. 50% of those are passenger trips, 15 are student trips, 15 are medical appointments, 15% are for city events, and then that leaves 5% for social and shopping, and that's the breakdown of the trips. Our organizational chart has not changed. You will note that the City of Franklin employee, that is the Michael, what is their role, would you say?
So
Explain now.
the transit inspector is in the transit fund budget, but reports to the police, or is within the police department. This was something that we did a couple of years ago now in order to maintain the ability of the parking enforcement officer, the former name of the position, to be able to execute their duties. So it's funded here, but the money is simply part of the city subsidy that comes in, has no impact, but is more of a budgetary, legalistic exercise of where we account for that position.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so our highlights for the base budget request overall, revenues, $4,207,068. TMA secured 62% of the revenue dollars in federal and state grants. The Franklin Transit budget revenues year to year for this upcoming budget are reduced by 3.4%, mostly due to the delay in the microtransit study. So we pulled all that proposed funding in expense and revenue out of the budget. I do want to share with you, and you will recall, that in 2020, TMA negotiated on behalf of Franklin Transit with the Federal Transit Administration for CARES Act and American Recovery Act funds. These funds have been used over the last 5 years to assist the city of Franklin with its financial support of transit. Those funds at the end of this fiscal year, June 30th, will be depleted. So they've been utilized, very well utilized, and they were 100% funding. So there were no funds required. And so therefore, the city's contribution to transit is increasing this year due to the depletion of the pandemic related funds. So just wanted to, and we, like I said, we've been sharing that day was coming, and it has come. So therefore, speaking to that, Carrying on to the expenses, the budget is virtually level funded. The expenses are $4,338,30. Components of that, transit wages will have inflationary increase, as will, the burdens, the benefits, those things. And so we anticipated for that. The increase in the Todd service has been wonderful, but it's also incurred expenses. Fixed route will maintain a normal level of expenses. We are anticipating fuel to be flat this year, and so we'll see. Cost of maintenance, labor, vehicle liability, insurance, all those things normally will increase. We're not too sure how tariffs are going to play into that, especially the maintenance and that kind of thing, parts and equipment. So we'll see, but we did budget for an increase. In general, there continues to be inflation and volatile pressure on every expense item for transportation services nationwide. So those are our notes about the expenses, the expense side. Like we said, the transit total fund is $4,338,30. Net FTA request from the city of Franklin for the city employee department. You can see up there the total city subsidy is $1,461,745. Operations request, that is $1,394,203. The planning is $12,500, and the capital is $55,042. A side note about the planning, mentioned the planning that the city and the Transit Authority are seeking a consultant on. Those services, we have funds for those. Those funds are set aside. Those funds, there will be a 10% match for the city in those funds, but we have got the others covered with grants. So I just wanted to rest assured. Again, we look forward to another year of growing and serving the community with our services. We feel that our services are essential to so many citizens in our wonderful community, and we are committed to serving them. And the City of Franklin appreciate your all support, obviously, and partnership and continued support. And do you have any questions?
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Debbie and team. I just thought I'd take a second to share some of the support that city staffs provide. As Debbie included in her presentation, I'm the liaison to the Franklin Transit Authority, and a little better than a year ago, we hired a contract compliance analyst, Christiana Dunn, that's a part-time employee that reviews invoices every month, amongst other items related to grants. From our Traffic Operations Center, Adam Mosier is beginning to play a bigger role in working with the Transit Authority, particularly now that actually just this afternoon, we interviewed 5 consultants that are interested in performing the work related to the Master Transit Plan. Also out of our Traffic Operations Center, Abby McCurry plays a role in providing support, and Tia Holden from our Planning and Sustainability Department helps with preparing agenda packets and getting out information. The last thing I want to mention is that in last year's budget, in the Traffic Engineering and Traffic Operations Center, there are funds for a multimodal coordinator, in which we had the advertisement out about a month ago. We're preparing to interview the selected candidates for that position, which will work closely with the consultant on the Master Transit Plan, along with Adam and Abby, but also, work with the Franklin Transit Authority much closer in helping with the operations that the TMA group provides. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda, Building and Neighborhood Services.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You know me. I'm Tom Marsh. I'm the Director of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department. I take the opportunity to introduce my colleagues I have with me. I have Rodney Prince, who is our Assistant Director for Building Services, who many of you have come across. And then you may not have met Alex Bearden, who is our Permitting Operations Supervisor. He and his team in the permitting shop are very much in the center of much of the development activity in the city of Franklin. And also we have Kathleen Sauceda, who is our Housing Development Coordinator, that you'll have a chance to hear from a little bit later also if you have questions.
Well, Tom, I was looking, I thought maybe one of those was Alex Brown there. I didn't-
Alex is out of town on training today.
He's out of town.
He
All right.
timed that very well for professional development. As we all know, we're familiar with talking about the BNS department for the purpose in terms of supporting safety and quality of life for the citizens of the city. But one of the things I also want to mention, as we've started to take note of, is how the work of our department can be seen as facilitating and helping to maintain private investment in the community. And in 2024, our department helped facilitate $778 million of private investment in the community. And you'll hear us talk about that in terms of the construction value and cost of all the permits that we issue and the projects that we help to bring to fruition for the city. And we also collected $2.4 million in permit fees to help cover the costs of our department. In terms of the organization, this looks familiar. Our organization chart has been consistent since 2019. With our budget proposal for this year, the structure will stay the same. We do have a couple proposed position changes and titles that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. Here's the base budget for personnel, and I'll point out from the beginning here that you may have noticed before, there is actually a typo there for the FY 2025 approved budget. Actually, it's correct on the screen, Mr. Michael already corrected it. So, the numbers work.
Item that's in Civic Clerk, a transposition error occurred by the individual that prepared the slide, me. So the slide that's on your screen is 3.364 for the approved budget, but in Civic Clerk, but on the screen is correct and matches your detailed budget.
And once again, we have a moderate increase that's proposed as a result of anticipated higher medical and pension costs. Again, no new positions are being asked for. However, we have some position reclassifications we'll talk about in just a couple minutes. And then we'll go on to operations. Our actual request for operations, as you see, shows a decrease of about 20%. And you see the main reason for that, as we discussed, you may recall last year we did the customer survey for the development community, and we're not doing that again this year. There's talk of maybe again next year, but you can see that's a significant decrease in our budget for the year. Our overall operations budget is fairly small in the grand scheme of things for what you consider. I did want to talk about a couple of items for you. And one of those, as we talk about training, that is often a rather significant portion of our budget. It's still not a big item, but in terms of our $265,000 request, it is. The BNS department personnel hold over 200 professional certifications. And those certifications, as you know, require continuing education. And that the requirement ranges widely from about 16 hours to 38 hours over 3 years. And so obviously that comes into play in actually paying for the cost of the courses and any time there's travel involved, whether it be in-state and sometimes out of state. Another component of our operational budget, it comes into play when we update our codes. And we had so another area we have a little bit of a decrease this year. As you know, sometime this year we will adopt the 2024 versions of the international codes. And every time we do that, there's a cost associated with training and actually just purchasing the publications. And Alex Bearden just a couple days ago purchased a set of training of the codes for his staff. And it's about $1,000 for one complete set of the codes. And we have 20 plus people in the department. We like for each person in the department to have their own set of codes, especially for our inspectors who are going out in the field and need the ready reference to share with any contractors they're dealing with. But so we had a significant portion of that expense in the current fiscal year. So that's also a reduction between fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. Another chunk of the operations budget that we mentioned here is for the Avenue STVR software that we implemented this last year. And as you can see now, we are incorporating the annual maintenance and service fee of $26,000. And I just made a couple of notes about what the STVR software helps us track. In 2024, we had 166 STVR permits that were issued. And the Avenue software tells us that the average nightly rate for STVRs in Franklin is $143. I can expand on that if you wanted to about what that means in terms of hotel motel tax and permit revenue, but just so you know, that's what that $26,000 annual maintenance cost for that software. Another new charge or a new request for FY 2026 is a bump in the public outreach area of $9,000 for floodplain outreach. That was a new cost we realized in fiscal year 25 as we, for the first time, we sent out mailers to every property owner who owns property that is within the floodplain. In conjunction with the adoption of the new FEMA maps, we wanted to get that public information campaign out there. And in fact, that cost of mailing was a little bit more than we anticipated. But we also learned that just the sharing of the information is important, and an annual kind of touch base with every property owner to remind them that they're in the floodplain and to remind them of the issues that come along with that in terms of development. We think that that's money well spent, and it also does improve our city standing in the community rating system. And we go on to capital, and there's, obviously, we don't anticipate any capital expenditures. We do have some program enhancement requests for this year. The first one is one new vehicle for the department fleet. And the proposal generates a dedicated pool or floater vehicle for the department. We have 20 assigned vehicles in the department, and if any of those are out of service on any given day, then we need a pool vehicle from fleet. We previously had 22 vehicles assigned to the department, and over a couple of years ago, as we tried to transition the full fleet or pool vehicles under the street to fleet department, we transferred a couple of our extra vehicles to the fleet. But we've realized over the last couple of years that amongst our 20 vehicles that may be out in the field on any given day, anytime one of our vehicles is out of service for whatever reason, it really will help our operations if we have a dedicated vehicle that's a floater in the department. So that's what we're proposing with this PER. One additional vehicle that obviously the new vehicle will be assigned to someone who's using it every day, and we'll take one of our older vehicles and that will become a dedicated floater or pool vehicle just to our department to help us with, anytime on a daily basis. It seems like there's always a vehicle out of service for some reason.
Well, Tom, are all of the vehicles take home?
They are not. We have, do you know off the top of your head? About 15 of our vehicles are take home, and we have 5 or 6 that are.
So 5 or 6 are parked.
Correct. The other PERs, these are the position reclassifications that we talked about, and these are all in our development services area. We're proposing to reclassify our permitting operations supervisor position to development services manager. We want to reclassify our permit technicians as development services technicians, and we proposed the creation of a new position, a development services technician 2. And then the other one is reclassifying our technical sports specialist as a development services IT specialist. All three of these proposals are related to the broader nature of the work of our permitting section and supporting development services across the board throughout the city. If you have questions about kind of what they do, that's, Alex is here, and on a given day, Alex and his team, it's not just about issuing building, plumbing, mechanical permits, especially when you talk about some of the larger non-residential projects that are tied to site plan approvals and so on. They interact with applicants, customers throughout the development process in the city of Franklin, especially when you get to, the process starts often with a development plan, but especially when you get to the site plan and all the way through building permit, certificates of occupancy, our permitting staff is interacting with other departments and customers at anywhere in that process. So we're really, you've heard us start to talk about this a little bit in the last, year or two, broadening that perspective of just from permitting to development services. And along with that, there's additional responsibilities, additional knowledge that we look for them to have. And that's the upgrade of the permitting supervisor to a development services manager. He's managing a lot of processes, a lot of functions. And specifically in the permit technician area, obviously we would still have the entry level of the development services technician 1. And what we realize is when you talk about the scope of development services in the city of Franklin, for our permitting section to really function, they need experience. And we want to keep some of those folks around in those positions for more than just a couple of years. And so that's the idea of creating the step-up position of development services technician 2, and hopefully we'll keep some of those folks around and build on their experience. The same thing with our technical sports specialist. He has developed his expertise in our enterprise software systems that are focused on development. Our plan review software, our N4 permitting and enterprise. He has a level of expertise that supports multiple departments, and we think that should be recognized, the broad nature of his work, with an upgrade in that position. And then we go, so that leads us to, all you see in the proposed organization chart, it lays out the same as the current chart, just with the position title changes. And last, in summary, there's a lot of words there. And what I wrote down in my notes, this slide probably should just say consistency. Our budget request does not change much from year to year. The vast majority of the budget is personnel. And as we mentioned, even if these program enhancement requests are approved, that's an annual increase of approximately $40,000 for all of those positions. Our operations hovers around $300,000, and with various bumps from year to year, this year with the customer service survey or not, and other things that come along. So with the proposed budget, we'll continue to do what we do. We'll support development coming to the community, and we'll also support residents and businesses who are already here. And I'll pause if there's any questions specifically about neighborhood services before we transition.
Alderman Peters.
Chairman, maybe one follow-up again. Thank you. Thank you, Tom, Rodney, Alex, and Alex Brown, who's not here, too, and the entire team. Really try to meet the needs of our citizens and the people we serve. As Tom had mentioned, and it bridges all the departments I would directly work with, planning and engineering, but even some of our other departments that work on private development. The Development Services Advisory Commission is an integral part of our development services. Alderman Matt Brown is the board's liaison, as you know. And the survey that was recently completed, we are working with them on breaking apart certain aspects of all of our policies and procedures to ensure that we're being as efficient and clear as possible. And that survey, while it didn't get an overwhelming response, nevertheless, there were comments made that our team has discussed, wants to look closely at the aspects, but taking the lead from the Development Services Advisory Commission. Catherine Harrelson, who works under Michael's group and in the budget performance area, is a liaison to that committee, as well as working closely with all the other departments, and Michael serves on the committee as well. So I just wanted to provide that insurance in between before Emily comes up and presents her part. Thank you.
Tom, go back one screen, maybe one more, if you can. I want to compliment, I think I say this each year, I appreciate seeing names under the titles. I think it helps us as a board. We don't interface with you that much, but we do see names that we don't necessarily see. We see you pretty regularly, yeah, like every second and fourth Tuesday. But some of the others we do not. I appreciate that, and thank you for that, that addition to that. Any other questions or comments? All right, then. Let's
Thanks,
go.
Real quick, we'll talk about the Community
Yes.
Development Block Grant, and I'll just stay here and talk about it. So, as you know, as an entitlement community, the city has allocated $300,000 to $365,000 each year. We've been another area of consistency since 2007. Our funds will continue to be used to support programs in emergency repair of homes of low to moderate income residents and the construction of new deed-restricted affordable and workforce housing for sale or for rent. And if you flip to the next slide, that what we did, we gave you a roll-up of where we are for these are the funds that we still have available from the grant years 22, 23, and 24. So the total as of December 24 was $553,000. Still what we anticipate through June 30th of this year to expend $241,000. And so our budget for FY26 is $311,000. And there again, that's totally passed through. These are funds that we receive from HUD and then we expend through the years. So that's, as we see things right now, our annual allocation, we're notified between August and September of each year what the next annual allocation will be. So for this year, we really don't know what to expect, but as what we anticipate for, what we know we have for FY26 will be that $311,000. We keep that presentation simple, and we'll also, Kathleen's here to answer any questions you have.
Any questions of the grants? So how many different projects then did you do for that? Kathleen, come over here. Yeah. Either wherever you want to go, that'll be, how many different projects?
Currently in the pipeline are the 2 additional homes on in the Hard Bargain neighborhood on Mount Hope. We just finished the duplex there. We are finally moving forward with the Natchez Granbury. That will be a partnership with Habitat for Humanity. So those are in the pipeline right now. Overall, we did, of course, Bungalow Court over the years. We've done 3 additional homes in Hard Bargain. We worked on a home, Ralston or Eddie Lane. It's been a while. I can't quite remember which street that was
They both
on.
flow in the same direction, don't they?
Everything is always focused on making sure these homes stay in the neighborhoods, they're deed restricted for the 30 years, and they have the affordable price tag with them.
Also in the realm of the emergency repair and calendar year 24, in realms of smaller projects, there was an elderly resident who had trouble getting in and out of her house, and she needed a concrete driveway to her front door, and we were able to use the CDBG funds and an emergency repair. Everything we do, as a reminder, is with a non-for-profit partner usually, and so Kathleen was able to work with one of our partners to do the work for her, and then we reimburse them with CDBG funds. And I can't remember, do you have another small project in 24?
We are working on another project, but it's in the
Yes.
process. A lot of them take a little bit to line
Exactly.
the contractors up and
We deal with government every day.
I appreciate your continued support and questions because it keeps the program alive and front and center.
Mayor?
Yeah, I've got a question for Kathleen, if I could, and maybe just for the committee's understanding, is that there is some limitation on how long you can hold that money. And I think we had a letter that I'm referring to that was asking about whether we were expending all of our money. If you could clarify that for them.
We generally can keep 1.5% of the funding. We can't have a carryover. But as the mayor said, what happened is we were over, but I'm in the process of drawing stuff down. You will have 2 contracts before you April 8th. And once those are approved, we're going to be not only on track, we will have used some pretty big money, because the one for Hard Bargain's 80,000, the one for Natchez is 50,000. I did an 11,000 today, and then a real minor admin one.
Just to clarify, Kathleen, you said 1.5%. I think you meant 1.5 times.
Well, I'm sorry,
an annual
and
allocation.
you caught that
Okay,
the
yeah,
last
just,
time.
yeah.
Any questions of Kathleen? Seeing none, Tom, Kathleen, thank you. We appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, guys.
So the next item, planning and sustainability.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm Emily Wright, your Director of Planning and Sustainability. I don't have anybody with me today. They're in the office meeting with other people.
We will loan you one of those in the,
They're all wonderful. I would take all of them. So I just want to kind of jump into my presentation today by starting with the purpose of the department. I go through this every year, but it's an important part of what we do. We strive to protect and enhance our built and natural environment in the city by providing a comprehensive vision for future growth, protection of our natural and historic resources, and providing excellent planning services for the businesses and residents here in Franklin. We specifically work with the Planning Commission and you as the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to identify and complete long-range planning initiatives. We process and review our annexation requests that are submitted to us and our current development applications to ensure quality growth. And of course, we provide assistance to a variety of commissions, including Historic Zoning Commission, the Franklin Civil War Historic Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Sustainability Commission, the Development Services Advisory Commission, as requested by Vernon and Catherine at times. And we provide additional assistance to several other commissions as needed. Next, moving into our organization chart, there's no changes to this proposed this year. We do have 2 assistant directors, one who primarily works with our long-range planning staff and historic preservation staff, that's Kelly Dannenfelser. And then we have our other assistant director of current planning and development, that's Amy Diaz-Barriga, and she works with all of our current planners, land planners that review and process development applications each cycle. This is a list of some of our accomplishments from 2024. I won't run through them all, but I'll highlight a few. We completed and received approval for many things. Most notably, the Williamson County Growth Plan was finally approved, and the associated interlocal agreement. We had a 5-year comprehensive update to both Envision Franklin and the Franklin zoning ordinance. We are still working on a few remaining pieces of that zoning ordinance update that you'll be seeing this year. They kind of rolled over from the last update that we didn't quite finish. So you'll see still some pretty significant changes coming before joint workshop in the coming months. We've updated our annexation capability study, including providing infrastructure across by drainage basin and really linking those to capital projects as well. And then the rest of these are just some things to highlight for before you. One of the biggest things that we really appreciate having funding for in a previous fiscal year was that we were able to complete our departmental review team Pierce City trip to Austin and San Marcos. Our DRT really does a phenomenal job facilitating reviews of development plans, and this was a great opportunity for them to learn about other regulations in similar cities or cities that have regulations similar to ours. And we were really able to actually see development on the ground, talk through components that would work here, would not work here, and why. So it was really a great opportunity for education and for us just to grow as a team. Some of the things that we have began and currently have underway, recently wrapped up the special census. We have an update to our parks audio tour that's inclusive of new and revised stops. I know that Emily and Elizabeth presented that before a BOMA work session several months ago, but that's still continuing to be underway. As well as our U.S. line markers project that's been many years in the making. So we're really excited to see that coming to a completion. And then we have had a consultant selected for the update to the preservation plan. And we're getting that underway as we speak. Here's just a run through of the number of different development plan applications, variance requests, certificates of appropriateness that were issued by our Historic Zoning Commission, runs through all the different types of things that were approved in this last year. I'd like to provide you those numbers every year so you can kind of see what all is actually going through the planning department and the departmental review team. Moving on to the base budget request for personnel. As I said, we're not really proposing any changes in this area. There's just that moderate increase of 1.7% related to the higher medical and pension costs. For operations, there is a little bit of a decrease of about 12.1%. The main reason being we need less computer replacements this year. We're kind of in a cycle where those hit more heavily in certain years. We also provide updates to Surface Pros for the Planning Commission and some of the Historic Zoning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals. So when those updates are needed for those commissioner tablets, there tends to be a fluctuation in that line item for us. One notable increase we have in our base budget is that we are proposing to increase from $2,000 to $5,000 for our public relations and education line item, really because we no longer have the city hall meeting space for our long range and preservation plan, those different planning initiatives. So we're potentially going to need to rent out facilities to handle some of these larger open houses and meetings. So we'll do what we can, obviously, in Eastern Flank here at this facility, as well as some of our other facilities like the police community room. But there may be some situations where we need to locate it either Columbia State or at one of the county buildings. And sometimes there's a rental facility fee associated with that. We also have continued coverage of our transcription services for meeting minutes. Due to the number of commissions and boards that we actually provide liaisons to, those number of meeting minutes add up very easily during the month and take an overwhelming amount of time for our staff. So we are consulting out for transcription services for some of those. We also have a continued emphasis on our continuing professional education. The majority of our planners are AICP certified, and we have a continuing education requirement for 32 hours with specific categories and topics that we also have to hit, like law, ethics, sustainability, and resilience. I think the last one slipped my mind. But anyways, we have 4 different areas where we have to specifically have our continued education. And so this is a continued emphasis on that as well. we have no capital requests this year. And then we have one program enhancement request. Just the first thing I'll note is that we did have a program enhancement request for fiscal year 2025 for the preservation plan update. That was actually for 100,000 in fiscal year 25 and will carry over the remainder into fiscal year 26. So that's the plan on that one. But then we are proposing a program enhancement request for a downtown parking study. This is different from previous downtown parking studies. I know you're familiar with this a little bit as it was presented at the last work session, but I would like to run through it a little bit more just from a high level, that this parking study not only would include a count of our existing supply of parking, both paid and free parking, but this really is specifically policy oriented. It would address our zoning requirements for parking, not only in downtown, but it would also look at those corridors of interest that were presented at the work session. So we would really be able to look at what our standards are today, have the community outreach, work with business owners, downtown groups that have an interest in this particular issue, and we'd be able to find out strategies for how we should address our minimum parking requirements in our zoning ordinance, really to ensure that we're looking at not only the economic impacts of parking, that we're looking at impacts to surrounding residential areas, and that we're supporting the businesses in our downtown area. So that's one component of it. It would also give us some strategies on how to really look at paid parking versus free parking. We currently have in our zoning ordinance that any paid parking requests that are for the required parking spaces per the zoning ordinance must come before the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and be approved to be for paid parking. We do not have any parameters around what those recommendations should be for when paid parking would be acceptable, when it wouldn't be. And this could help us really provide a framework to help make those, for the board to help make those decisions, or where that level of decision-making should be made and on what basis. So this would do those two things predominantly. As Andrew mentioned in his presentation, it would also focus on special event parking and provide some strategies related to that as well. So this is not just the standard parking study that we've done in the past. I think this would really set us up to look at some issues that continually come forward. We have had multiple variance requests come before our Board of Zoning Appeals this year and at the end of last year to either not provide any parking or to reduce parking significantly from what's required. Those variances have all been approved, but as we continue down this path, there are going to be impacts to the downtown neighborhoods and businesses if that trajectory continues, and we love to get more ahead of it if possible and actually look at some of these policies in the upcoming fiscal year. So that request is currently for $250,000. We could look at the scope of services potentially and see if there are some areas that we could reduce that. But due to the amount of public outreach that's really going to be needed, that is what drives the majority of the cost up. It takes the most amount of time, and it's consultant time that has to be paid for. So that is generally where the bulk of that money comes from. And then we're also paying for people, I mean, there's a limited amount of people who really have a specialty in parking, and we're looking for those specific professionals. So we might be able to whittle that down a little bit. We could do our best to look into that, but I would be hesitant to reduce it significantly. I think maybe 200,000 might be manageable from what we have looked at with other cities, but I think reducing it below that, we may not get the results we're actually after.
Couple things I would just add, and thanks for providing that additional context, Emily. I think we need to keep this in play. We can assign a portion of this cost to hotel motel tax, because certainly parking as a component of our tourism product. So I think that would be a fair allocation. And I had asked staff to sort of look at, is there a range or is there even a phasing we could do that gives the board a little sense? And this may spread over a couple fiscal years. So I sense some sticker shock a little bit when we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but also a mixed bag of responses. But I also feel we need to be careful to just sort of not do anything for 3 or 4 years could really be detrimental. You may have some things that get refined, but actually, as you're looking at some things that reshape some of the landscape of downtown, is actually an ideal time to do some policy thinking. Because you might, as you implement things like a new city hall and how that is configured and the parking that gets added with that, you change some patterns in thinking through how you might implement that in a way to maximize the benefit of the parking the city's building, plus how paid parking integrates into all these decisions. Look at how much we spent time on talking about Hank's Coffee and parking. That's probably not the only time something like that's going to come up. The other requests that you got for the other two exceptions or modifications that were requested related to parking, those are going to keep coming back, and we're going to keep struggling a little bit with, well, how do we handle this? How do we treat paid versus unpaid, employee versus other, all those elements aren't going away. So providing a better framework to think about that, I think, has a lot of benefit. I get there was some sticker shock and there may be some hesitancy, and maybe the way we look at structuring this could help get folks a little more comfortable, but I think we need to keep it in front of you. So I appreciate Emily providing that additional context too.
There's also a little bit of a benefit between doing this around the same time frame as the transit master plan. Really, this actually came up today in some of our questions, but in terms of how much parking is available in the downtown area and how much transit is used, there is a correlation and a balance between the two. And having two planning efforts that actually are connected in that way is really beneficial to doing them at the same time so they can play off each other and have recommendations that work together, not against each other.
Well, do we have specific parking places for the transit buses to stop, let somebody on downtown? I know we do out in Cool Springs and other, because I see them. I'm just trying to remember where they are.
We do. I'm not as familiar with exactly where they are, Eric. I don't know.
I don't know where, I can't list all of them, but we actually just relocated the one that was by Old City Hall to kind of the other side of the square. So we've moved that. Obviously, you've got the transit building itself, but there are others. I just am not, I'm not going to rattle them off, but there are others. Yeah.
And I think, if I may,
Please.
Part of the transit study that we're doing is also looking at those routes and to see if those are the most effective. And how does the flow of transit downtown, the type of transit, and then the parking, I guess, would play into it. But just because there's one on the square now, I'm sure there will be one in the future plan, but there could be others, and I would agree. I was going to reserve my comments on this for later, but I feel like this needs to come back to the board, because I do think we were a bit rushed there the last meeting. But second is that this was I think explaining that this isn't actually just like a parking count.
Yeah.
I think that is maybe how the board, we thought it was, this is a count study of all the,
So,
you know what I mean, and not some of this level of detail. So I think that'd probably be a pretty quick follow-up, but I do just had the Downtown Franklin Association last week. They're going to be behind pushing for us to do this. The hotelier downtown called me about overnight parking in the city deck. I said, well, where you were a year ago when we were talking about this? But I think those problems are going to continue to come forward. So thank you. That's just good. I'd support it.
Could I?
Ann?
I'm just thinking about all these things and remembering whenever we have gone to some other, towns, not, huge cities, that have a lot of people coming in just to, enjoy being there and everything. a number, or quite a few of them had a parking lot that was not right in the downtown area. And then they had a shuttle that took people to downtown. And it, with the new parking that we're having out at Bicentennial and things like that, that's entirely possible that we might have something like that. But also, I think that they said that they also had places for people who were employed there, but they parked somewhere fairly far away, but then they got shuttled into where they are employed.
That really gets into one of the big issues in a lot of cities, and is the cost of parking. I mean, as land values continue to increase, and you really look at the fabric of your city, it's what is the best use for some of these properties, and having parking lots breaking up kind of the fabric of our downtown area may not always be the most long-term sustainable use. And a lot of cities have found that having a lot on the periphery of the downtown area and having shuttle services is a much better land use pattern. It's more sustainable over time, and still provides some parking for their visitors and their residents. So that's a very good point.
And we do also have a lot of floodplain close to downtown where, there's sometimes that people could not park there, but a great percentage of the time, they would be able to park there. So that is something that, as I say, it's the type of thing that I've seen, although the other places, as far as I know, didn't just park in the floodplain. But I remember over the years seeing several of them that have done something like that. And we're sure needing something.
Well, I think Eric may have touched on one or two that I had in relation to this, because we looked at it the other night, $250,000, and we've got hopefully a hotel, City Hall coming on board at the end of 2027. That has to be a change to the traffic pattern. And I'm just asking myself and anyone else, if this gets done, what the benefit is. And you said maybe some of the zoning things, it's not just a count, and this street's halfway, one-way street, and something else is north-south instead of south-north. But it's an issue with some of our zoning and whatnot that we have on there. I'm willing to hold judgment on my $250,000 support for this, but I think that what you've explained and what Eric has explained goes a long way in telling us why we need this right here. Now, I'll ask you this question, or Eric, either one. Does this get done in time to do us any good before City Hall is occupied?
Well, we would look at this, when we did the scope of services and drafted something in the last couple of months, we were really looking at this being a 9 to 12 month study. So we would anticipate this being a maximum study of a year unless we ran into decision-making concerns, I think. And that could elongate the process if we weren't getting consensus on what direction we needed to head. That could stall the process a bit. But in terms of doing the study, 12 months is plenty of time to get this completed and to do the stakeholder outreach, get the policy recommendations before you. I would think that's more than adequate.
So 36 months, give or take, before we move into the new City Hall. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think you can time it out so that it can work well with that. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
On your screen,
Yeah.
if you type in bus stops Franklin, Tennessee in Google Maps,
Okay.
there's a little clutter of other colors, but the red dots are the bus stops within the downtown area. So
Okay.
I think the blue route comes in off Franklin Road. I think the red route comes in off Hillsborough. If I'm wrong about that, just flip, because there's two routes.
That is correct, because one of the consultant teams rode the blue route in today from Cool Springs.
Okay.
Is what?
One of the consultant teams we spoke with today rode the blue route in from their hotel to our meeting.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Or was it at the, was it?
It was over.
It was
at
at Interim.
Columbia
Yep.
Avenue.
So in any case, there are 5 stops right on Main Street. This one, as Eric said, has been reoriented. The route that comes in along Hillsborough has 2, and then, of course, all make stops at the transit center. So, FYI.
That answers that. Any other questions or comments? I have one for Eric if he wishes to address it. You got the census on there? Census update, whether or not we wish to proceed with that, I guess, or whatever we are as status is concerned, because it looks as if we're getting stalled out.
We have stalled out. We're not going to get it done for this year to get anything certified. So we have a hard decision to make of, is it worth spending more money? So that's bad news. Good news is there is some consideration of the state to do something we have recommended, which is to default to census projections that we get from the U.S. Census Bureau, which are largely accurate, at least in our experience, have been pretty close to accurate, instead of making cities go through the cost and time and energy to try to update counts. Let's use a resource that gives a pretty good update of counts. So there is some legislation that I think speaks to that. So Vernon can.
Yeah,
address that.
thank you, Chairman and Eric. That's exactly right. The state legislature is looking at a bill now that provides for the Boyd Economic Center, I believe it's called, at UT Knoxville, to do that analysis annually. So communities get their shared revenue based on that analysis, and then every 10 years, the federal census is done. I do want to say that our team really tried to achieve a successful special census. Columbia, Murfreesboro, not even close to the effort that we put into it. And, we in Franklin, when we put our minds to something, we get it done. And, but the state of the economy, the people's perception perhaps of government, whatever it is, just didn't get us to be successful. But I did want to recognize the team that really tried, and the part-time employees we had, to really put in their time to try to be successful. But this legislation was very timely.
When by far where we saw the greatest drop-off in response was the response to the mailers. We got very little response from people sending those back in. We got good response online. We had part-time folks going door to door, working hard to get those where they could. But we just really saw a huge drop-off in that component. We've done, I guess, 3 of these since I've been here, and our effort this time was every bit as good, if not better. It just, the environment is different in terms of responding and sharing information. I would just say that. And I think that's true on many aspects, not just interacting with us in a special census. It's
And
just where we are.
to piggyback on what Eric said, we even sent out another second mailer to those that didn't respond, and we had a dashboard that we kept track of who was responding, and then sent out that second mailer. And it was just disheartening that we didn't get those responses back. Because we tried to explain the revenue portion of it for our citizens and how it goes to infrastructure and everything.
Well, we had somebody stop by our house, and of course, I had filled out the thing online the first day, but they had stopped by our house.
Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of different people out there and tried to give them a list every Saturday morning, and some worked even throughout the week too. But we reached out to big box retailers to be out in front of their building, the apartment complexes. I I could almost
You
write
can
a
name.
book of what one should go through to perform a special census, but this legislation is the right way to do it in this day and age with the data that's kept online and digitally, and you have a part of an institution that's what they do. It'll be a much better result going forward.
Any questions or comments? Well, since I've demonstrated to Eric my expertise with this, and I'm sure he was surprised to see my card come in and not have me do it electronically online.
Very good.
Any other questions of Emily? Does that wrap it up?
Well, I do have a summary slide. I'll just keep it
Yes.
really brief. It's an exciting time still in the planning department. We're going to continue focusing on managing growth and annexation practices. You'll be seeing much more of us in front of you related to annexation as we look at some new tools perhaps to utilize in the decision-making process for those. We'll continue to focus on historic preservation and sustainability, housing choices and quality of place, regional transportation and local mobility, and of course, our long-term vibrant economy. Moving into fiscal year 26, we'll be continuing the preservation plan update, and if approved, we'll kick off a downtown parking study. We'll be sitting down at a joint workshop whenever a time slot becomes available to identify long-range planning priorities with both the board and planning commission. And you'll see continued updates to the zoning ordinance. So thank you so much for your support. We continue to do our best to provide the highest level of planning services for development activity and our long-range planning needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome to the meeting, Mr. Potts.
Thank you very
Good-
much, Mr.
good.
Chair.
Yeah. Engineering Department. Paul is up. Paul, I would let you use mine, but it hasn't been trained well yet, you know?
Okay, that's all right. I'll use this. So engineering department is made up of 4 divisions. We have a development services group, which helps to deliver private infrastructure. We have a capital projects group that delivers public infrastructure. We also have the traffic operations center, and we have the stormwater division. So this is our current org charts. Next year, I'll have names underneath it. So Jonathan Marston's our Assistant Director of Engineering over capital projects. He leads our team in delivering capital projects funded by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. We have our City Traffic Engineer, Adam Mosier. I continuously say this, he's one of the best traffic engineers across the state. He implements a lot of different technology, the Scoot system, different detections, different controllers. He's really taken our department to the next level. And then we have Jimmy Wiseman,
It's true.
who oversees
true.
our stormwater division and also our development division that helps deliver private development. And they take a lot of pride in delivering those projects quickly and working with the planning department and building and neighborhood services and the rest of our city team. So as it relates to personnel in the engineering department, it is a minor increase, same with traffic operations, due to higher medical and pension cost. As far as project enhancements this year, we're not requesting any enhancements within engineering or traffic operations. Sorry. Base budget, without the interfund transfers, it's a decrease of $50,000, mainly because we're not having to do the road impact fee study again, and just a shift in the property and liability insurance. As it relates to traffic operations, again, it's a decrease, mainly due to signalization projects that we've completed. Donaldson Creek and Lewisburg is obviously getting ready to start construction.
Thank you.
And South Margin Street, that design has progressed enough. And then it's also due to moving annual maintenance costs associated with various software, specifically our traffic signal controllers and our central system being shifted to the IT department. So as it relates to capital, the $74,000 in the engineering department is really as it relates to project management software. We're in the process of evaluating at least one right now, but we're pulling a bigger city team together to look at how we have software that helps us to manage those projects. We're just carrying that funding forward as we work through that process. In traffic operations, it's a decrease, and really we completed the Murfreesboro State Route 96 timing and infrastructure project, and there were some various technologies that we deployed with that project as well. So I'll take questions on engineering and traffic operations before we move to stormwater.
Just have one comment. I really do like the blinking left turn signals, on your traffic lights.
Yes.
I mean, that has turned out to be a great thing because it does let people, whenever everything is clear, make a left turn there. And it doesn't just keep just the green left turn signal on, and that's the only time you can go through. So I think that's really,
They're great. We're implementing those everywhere, and they're very, very,
Yes.
our traffic operations is very responsive with the street department, and you probably saw the email about Liberty and Mac Hatcher. They've already implemented the protected left turn to
yeah.
improve safety.
I need to look and see exactly what that is. But truly, it has made a big difference several places. And I think I'm not the only one that recognizes and appreciates and uses it.
Absolutely.
It's great.
Okay, so moving into.
Comment, then I was out there on 96 at lunch. Somebody was trying to turn left, eastbound, into either the chicken plant or whatever. Was that what you was?
No,
That traffic block?
no, but I've seen that too. They're still,
And really, had it blocked up, probably a dozen or more cars that could not get through, and they're trying to cut over. Where are we in putting those barriers up?
Got the plans today,
oh,
so we're getting ready we'll do a quick review of them. It won't take more than a day or two. Submit them to TDOT. As soon as TDOT gives us our permits, we'll bid it, and it'll be about the right time of the year with the asphalt plants opening up, and we're planning to do all-night work, so it should be fun.
If you do it the next couple of days, Alderman Berger might be out of town.
As soon as possible, we'll do it.
If I may, since you're on that subject, Paul, we had discussed on the east side of the interstate too. Is that going to be part of?
So what Vernon's referring to, we haven't
Yeah.
totally briefed everybody on this,
Yeah.
but with a recent traffic impact study, they recommended some pretty major improvements on the east side. And so we've looked at that. It adds about $100,000, but it's essentially taking those shoulders and turning them into additional through lanes and turn lanes, which would help us move
That could
traffic
be.
through that corridor. We're hopeful we can do it through hydroblasting instead of having to do a full mill and overlay. If TDOT requires us to do a full mill and overlay, obviously that cost is going to go up, but it would add a substantial amount of benefit, but I just need to see if the funding is available,
Yeah.
but it's about $100,000 is what we're estimating.
And the reason I brought it up is not only to share that, but as Paul and the team work through that, but try to do it at the same time in the evening and get it all done at one time on both the east and west side of the interstate.
It's a big benefit with little cost.
And that will come to you in more fully developed
Yes.
form when we have more answers, but it is an opportunity.
But we did the design in-house, we added it to the other median plans, and it's actually being submitted to TDOT too, so it's not going to slow us down, and
okay,
we'll see if that option works.
interesting.
Mr. Chair, I've got something, and Paul, I think that's great. Once TDOT approves those schematics, if you can give us a timeline, I know that, residents would really like to hear about that. I did have a question, just since you brought up Lewisburg Pike and Donaldson Creek, and you talked about
Yeah.
that moving forward. I know that I met with Eric previously, and he said that contract is actually up at the end of October. So I know that it has to be done prior to the end of October, but do we have a timeline? It's a little bit more firm.
Right now, we're still saying that same date as October. We're dealing with having to relocate Middle Tennessee. We're working on getting them to raise their electric up over the future mast arms. And we're authorizing the contractor to start purchasing materials. So as soon as we get more information on the vendors, their time frame, then we'll be able to provide a project update. But
Okay.
realistically, the project should be able to go very quickly once we have the materials.
Excellent. And that's what's being communicated is end of October is what the public's being told right now. Okay. And I'm letting you know, I'm communicating that as well. So we appreciate the project moving forward.
Yeah, while we're hopeful for better,
Yes.
the contract is the contract, and
Yes.
that's all we can say right now. But some of these other elements could help us move along quicker.
One suggestion from Mr. Holton, if he wants to top every department, would be to put a picture of each person with a label of what they do.
I feel bad for the fire department. They're going to have a lot of.
By their favorite intersection in Franklin.
Any other questions or comments? Paul, over to the next.
Okay, we'll move on to the Stormwater Division. Again, they implement the federal mandates from the EPA passed down to the state of Tennessee and oversee our MS4 permit. Again, this is the org chart. Jeff Willoughby is our Stormwater Manager Coordinator. And then there's staff engineers that work, one staff engineer that works under them, and then 4 water quality specialists. And one thing that they're tasked with is not only going to do public outreach and education, going into the schools and educating our kids, but it's also on-site inspections. And they do, what we do is a monthly inspection on every construction site. And then the developers do bi-weekly inspections, and then just to ensure minimum compliance of federal and state regulations. And again, that group does a great job with implementing our MS4 permit. And so as far as personnel, it's a slight decrease. Again, this is just because of slightly higher budgeted personnel costs in 2025, and that's just been adjusted in 2026. As it relates to operations, it's an increase of 18%, and that's mainly due to scheduled computer replacements. As it relates to capital, if you'll remember back in 2019, 2028 CIP, we took capital out of the stormwater budget and put it into the Board of Mayor and Aldermen's priority process, which is where it should be. You guys should prioritize that, not city staff, do it with our input. And last year, we had the Liberty Hill Stream Restoration Project in it. A small amount of funding was there. That funding is being shifted to, obviously, there's a grant for the project, and then to the general fund where the funding is available.
And those expenses are being recorded against the capital projects fund. So you'll see the inflow of those grants and the amount of general fund cash in the general fund as a recognized revenue, and then a transfer out of the general fund into capital projects to complete the project in fiscal '26.
As far, no program enhancements are being requested with stormwater, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Members of the committee, any questions? Seeing none? Paul?
Thank you.
So what have we got? Economic development left. Who is, are you doing that? Economic development?
Michael could pull it up, and he and I can share on this
All right.
one.
Yep.
This is an area of targeted resource allocation where we work with some other partners in our region and in Franklin to help support what we do. We have some specific allocation we've made to Williamson Inc., the chamber, related to their efforts on supporting new and existing businesses, as well as some of their strategic plan and workforce work. We split it into 2 different contracts, or 2 different components of that contract with Williamson Inc. That amount, I believe, is holding stable from the last couple years with them. Excuse me. And then we also provide a payment to the Greater Nashville Regional Council for their work in regional, both development and working with dollars that flow through that agency for support. It is a per capita investment that we make. It is stable, and I'm going to let Michael cover it the rest of the way because I'm about to cough.
There's a final amount that is not budgeted here, which is rather sizable. It's forecast to be about $1.547 million in fiscal '26, which is the 1% of the 4% of the hotel motel fund that is given to the Convention and Visitors Bureau in order to support their operations with Visit Franklin.
Before you leave that,
Yes.
what is the
sir.
total budget for the Williamson County Convention and Visitors Bureau if the city's putting in $1,547,000? I think I ask that just about every year, but
The
I don't
pers-
remember from one year to the next.
So we put in 1%, the county puts in 1%.
And then Spring Hill makes a contribution. There's some other dollars. It's around 3.4, 3.5 million maybe total budget. Yeah. There's some grant money that flows through as well.
As with all budgets, we try to examine and look at performance measures and how the strategic plan fits in for economic development. Not unsurprisingly, 2 of the 6 themes of the strategic plan are applicable here: sustainable growth and economic vitality, as well as fiscally sound. Some highlights of note that you've seen through various presentations, certainly when Maureen Haley Thornton of Visit Franklin does come, she's very quick and appropriate to state that in 2022, we had 1.9 million tourist visits, and in 2023, over $1.3 billion in estimated spend by those visitors, which were both record levels. As you saw in January, the hotel motel tax fund remains strong and set new records in FY24, and we're set to break that again in fiscal '25 in terms of overall collections. Eric sends out to you on a monthly basis in your weekend updates, or weekly updates, I should say, updates from the CVB in terms of revenue per room and overall occupancy status, and we remain very strong in those categories. Unemployment rates also updated for you that we get once a month from the Department of Labor in the state of Tennessee show that we have, continually among the lowest unemployment rates of any city and county in the state of Tennessee. That was 2.5% at the end of 2024, and only 3.5% to 3.9% for the state, still below the national average, certainly in all categories. The 2022 Citizen Survey highlighted that we were very, very strong in national benchmarks. We ranked 5th nationally as a place to work, as a place to visit, the variety of business service establishments. People were quite happy about ranking us 5th nationally. And then 2nd nationally in terms of employment opportunities and the vibrancy of downtown Franklin. All of those culminated in winning a Voice of the People Award by the National Research Center and ICMA, the International City County Management Association, for excellence in economy in 2023. Budget detail, Eric kind of summarized it on the front page. We're estimating $99,963, just a hair under $100,000. I will say that the final date for receiving applications from outside funding, so we may get notice from the chamber that they would like some additional, but that deadline closes tomorrow. So therefore, at this time, we wanted to keep it consistent with the program areas. So we're presenting this today. Should there be an additional request for funding, foreshadowing, the April 10th meeting of this committee, you will receive the presentation of outside agency funding. So because we have that deadline tomorrow, and I'll speak briefly at the end of this before we adjourn regarding the future meetings ahead. Happy to stand for any questions.
Patrick?
So I've mentioned this a few times, and I'd like for staff to look into, there's some legislation relating to hotel motel tax caps that I've become aware of, possible changes in city municipalities being able to do increase, and then, well, we do a great job. All of our funding, I feel like, because of staff and our history, we spend it on the right things, but also kind of concerned if there is any, they give us additional hurdles to raise it to our current maximum allowable charge, and if there's any urgency for us to do that, to raise our hotel motel tax that I've discussed. I think as I've said before, I think that we've left millions on the table, and there's, how would we start that discussion with staff to bring that before the board? There's a lot of parties that would, maybe there's not a lot of parties. A lot of the hotel folks that I've spoken with had no problem with that extra dollar added to the room a night. But I think we need to be aware if time is of the essence with this, because if they do, have some legislation that impacts it, maybe our lobbyists can give us some insight. I don't want us to get caught and making a decision to raise it and then deciding what to do. I feel like we're just waiting for this big thing or waiting for this big project, and you know how these things take. It could take years and years, and we're just not collecting from those that are coming to visit. And I think the citizens would appreciate us at least having that discussion.
Yep.
Because this is not a tax on them.
Right. We've been keeping a close eye on this, share that concern. We have a permissive authority to go up to 5%. We're at 4% today. I've asked our legal counsel about our ability and our mechanism, and her opinion is that we can implement it through an act of the board. We don't need any other blessing or help or guidance. Part of what has been an undertone of some of the discussion at the state level has been the dedication of those funds to tourism related. And as you said, we have a pretty strong track record, but also a mechanism that shows very clearly how we use those funds, because we have the hotel motel tax that segregates that money, and you see that we give it to the CVB. We support projects that have tourism ties, and we've used it. We helped pay off the conference center with some of those funds as well. So I don't think the local tourism industry or hoteliers have the concerns they do other places, because many other communities just put it right in their general fund.
Right.
And the tourism community is like, well, how did that help us? And so it's just more muddled. And we can make a very direct and clear case about how it benefits us. And, fortunately, we have enough things in our CIP that have a connection there that it's a nice kind of tailored revenue source or funding source that we can look at for projects. So I think that is something certainly to consider. It has been a long-standing permissive authority. A lot of the work has been in other places in the code, but it's always, we know it's always at risk, potentially, just you never know. That it hasn't, we don't think this component has necessarily been targeted as something to restrict or change, but we need to keep a close eye on it. And it is at your decision as how you want to handle that rate.
And I think this is, concerned about, when you say concerned about the impact on tourism, you mean if we raise it, or you?
No.
Oh, you were talking about the impact, the legislation.
Legislative impact
Understood.
to restrict
Got it.
either that we can do it
Yeah.
or what we can do with it once we enact it. Now, I think you're already in a position where you're doing what most of the legislative
Right,
intent would be.
yeah, exactly.
So I'm not sure it would really affect us.
Yeah.
But
And that's fine. I have
Yeah.
no problem. What I do think is that we have citizens who, we share our town with folks, and we want to continue to do that. But we're waiting on someone to say, here's the plan for us to use this 1%. And I'm continue to say that it could take us a year and a half to decide what to do with it
Right.
before we even do it. And then it is the cart, the horse. And I think it would be, in the meantime, whether that is a master tourism plan that we fund, which I've heard that from Visit Franklin, that is something they would do, or if it's other ideas of things to bolster our tourism economy. I'm totally fine with doing it, but it's almost like, we keep saying it and everyone kind of nods their head like, yeah, that sounds, we need to collect more from the folks coming here, but then, we just so do it, and then we'll have the funds, set them aside, and let's decide if that's a partnership with Visit Franklin to do this master tourism plan, which I know Maureen has talked about. I just feel like if we wait to get that proposal from them, we're a year down the line.
Well,
right?
the reality is there's no shortage of already approved projects.
Agreed.
That could be eligible for these dollars in some way.
And I'm saying, let's just go ahead and start collecting it,
Yeah.
and then we can decide on if it's going to go towards our capital projects or whatever the tourism wants. Kind of this. So I don't know how others feel about that, but every citizen I talk to, and I say, did you know that we could be collecting another $1.40 a room night from those visiting here, and it could help pay for our parks? They're like, what? Why aren't we doing that? So,
So I'll also add in on what Alderman Baggett said, and I know I brought this up probably 2 years ago because I actually wanted to raise it a half a point. And in the discussion, it was, well, if we're going to raise it, we just need to raise it the full point. And so I agree. I mean, this has been an ongoing discussion that hasn't gone anywhere right now. I'm in support of moving this forward to a work session and having some numbers behind it so that we could take it at a work session and have this discussion to actually implement the 1%. When you mentioned that we're breaking records, we're going to break the 2003, break the 2004 as far as our tourism dollars and all of those, that our hotel motel tax is just continuing to go up. I think that we're leaving money on the table right now. That's my biggest concern. We have too many opportunities. So Eric, I don't know what we need to do to get that onto our radar for a future work session, but you've got at least 2 of the 4 Budget and Finance members here that are in support of it.
I would really look to just incorporate it as part of the budget
Yeah.
discussion overall. That would seem to be the logical approach, but, sorry.
Not only do it that way, but you've also got a new property tax coming
That's
up that
right.
you've got to look at too.
Exactly.
Just look at the whole, as a part of the whole package, if you will, or consideration,
Good point.
yes.
I was going to point out that they're getting ready to start a study on the Cool Springs Conference Center and Hotel. I think that's mainly funded by the hotel.
It is.
Yeah,
The city and county are
and
putting a
so
very
there may
small
be some-
amount in, but they're funding
yeah.
vast
There may be
majority.
some opportunities that pop up from looking at that.
Yeah, you
Any
do.
other-
Well, I'll just touch on that while you're at it, just to give even more context. Why they're doing that is the operating agreement for the conference center comes up at the end of 2027. And so I think there's a strong interest in the operator to continue to have that relationship. And our request of them is, well, tell us what the next 10-plus years looks like for you if you continue to operate. What's the business case to keep doing it the way we've been doing it? It's been largely successful, but the market continues to change. How do we fit in it? What are they going to do to help it be successful? What do those opportunities look like for us, city and county, as owners, and them potentially as an operator? So they very willingly got on board to do that and help give us a little more information that way. So stay tuned. It hasn't really even started yet. They're just getting going, but it's a request we made to help give us better context for future decisions.
One more thing before we leave community and economic development. There's one item that was left out of your packet, and so we're not going to present it in its totality today, but I want to make you aware of it. We will add it for the next agenda item. Last year, we had submitted a program enhancement request for a development services navigator position. And we would like to do that again. We'll get it back in front of you. Big picture, this would be a position that would help navigate large-scale projects through the development process, and it comes from some of the findings from the recent development survey of our development partners in the community. I just want to make that aware, because I'm not going to throw numbers and surprise you with a spreadsheet, but we'll get it in there, so therefore we can talk more about it next time, even though it's Public Works Program Area Day. And that will be part of your overall review as an option to select from in end of March, that we'll present in April.
Yeah, one of the things we heard in the survey was when projects cross lines in departments and different components, sometimes it gets harder. So this role would help sort of coordinate and navigate that for folks coming through the process.
quick question, it is for larger projects, so did the larger projects have the most, the most frequency of junior associates from consulting firms on the, is that, because that was kind of, is that what why we need this for them?
Well, thank you for asking that question, and that conversation came up, and some of our work and looking at those comments, larger projects typically translate into more complex projects, which require a higher level of expertise on the consultant's part. And you all know, because we struggle with hiring qualified civil engineers, so does the private sector. And that's where that comes in. I don't necessarily want to say they're junior or fresh out of college, because each firm is different. Some firms are more localized, regionalized. Other firms have a much larger bench because they're national. So the point being is that those larger projects require more attention depending on the complexity. Whether, and obviously there's a lot of elements that go in, the design, the site work, the stormwater, infrastructure, et cetera. So
Yeah, that's a good response, and I think I would just encourage you to, again, from that survey response, and I was able to look at a lot of the comments, and I think that definitely is, but they're probably more, prone to have probably more sophisticated engineering and consultants in the larger, and I'd be curious to know from staff if the bulk of their time is on big projects, or if the bulk of their time is spent on the, middle-sized, middle to smaller size, where maybe they do have the less experienced kind of consultants, and where maybe a navigator for, and it might be the next phase of this kind of idea. You have the navigator for the larger projects, but I also, the comments led me to believe a little more that there is this middle, and I would see if you have a project, and if I wanted to go build a house or a building, maybe not a house, but like a small building that I'm not going to go hire $100,000, consultant, and I may try to, have some, and so maybe those people aren't as knowledgeable about the process, and maybe those, I don't know, I think that finding out where the staff are really spending their time on size projects, and maybe start with the larger projects, if that frees up staff time to do better of what they're doing, or more attention to the other things they're doing, but also look at the other segments too, because I think that kind of interworking between departments and making comments between engineering, planning, BNS, that probably exists as well at all levels. This is probably a building and neighborhood or building services committee discussion, but I think the position sounds great, but I also think that look closely at all levels of that integration for all projects too. And maybe it is for the big projects, if that's where most of our staff time is being spent, but maybe it's other size projects where it's more complex because you have to deal with maybe a less sophisticated consultant or advisor than those big projects when they have the people who can understand the process. So
if I could, I'll just be real quick, because working with the team in the Development Services Advisory Commission, as I mentioned previously, is what we're going to do. But just to highlight what Tom brought up, our permit technicians are assigned to every project, and those are entry-level positions. And what Tom and our Building and Neighborhood Services Department brought before you was to have a hierarchy, so there's more of a career path commitment for those positions, and then we can assign the more experienced permit technicians to some of those little bit more complex projects, not the ones that are like a mixed-use development, McEwen Town Center, Berry Farms, but all those in between that you just highlighted, Alden.
That's great.
Any other comments or questions? Michael?
So that concludes the budget presentation for today. Just to give you the roadmap of the road ahead, we will not meet next week because it is spring break here in Williamson County. March 20th is your next meeting at 3 p.m., and that will be Public Works Day. So you will see the Streets Department, you will see the Parks Department, you will see Sanitation Environmental Services, and you will see Water Management. Almost, if not immediately after that meeting, it's our goal, hopefully by the end of that week, March 21st, we will give to Mr. Stuckey program enhancement worksheets that you can all fill out and state your requested top 10, top 15, I think we did last year, So you can rank order those, and so you'll have both the spreadsheet as well as the single PDF with every single program enhancement you've seen. We will ask that you get those back to us in about 10 days or literally March 31st. Why that date? Because I never believe in setting a deadline on April Fool's Day. Prudence just dictates.
Just like the president.
There you go. And then April 10th, we will present to you appropriation requests from outside agencies, general expenses. That budget we're going to take a few more minutes with this year because we've moved a lot into it. And so we want to make sure that that is understood and you can see that. But then also invite the entire Board of Mayor and Aldermen to come if they wish and review those program enhancement requests with the city administrator. Final reminder, the next meeting after that will be May 15th here at 3 o'clock. So it's the third Thursday technically of May. And that means that the city administrator and his team we will work to get that budget to you by Friday, March 9th, along with the rest of the packet, so that you have that, and he will present it at that time for fiscal 26 recommendations.
So are you holding the appropriations for 501c3s to a certain percentage for the bottom line, the bottom number?
We will, we're going to wait and see what they all submit. We're going to always take a look at what revenue growth we have and where things are. What we generally have done, and we will certainly do as our sort of baseline, is any appropriation requests that are above the current years, we take that difference and that becomes the program enhancement request. So if there are items of note, and again, we load all of their packets onto Civic Clerk, so you can take that review. But if, for example, someone comes in on a base budget of $20,000 and they're requesting 40, we'll make sure to highlight what that intent is with some of their items, so you can at least take a look at it. And if there's any questions you have, we can certainly get back and take a look.
Probably get some of us attention,
Mm-hmm. So,
20 to 40.
not saying any have, I'm just
No, we haven't
using that as an example.
Okay.
Most stay relatively close to what their prior request is. We may very well get a few new ones. We have in recent years, so anyone can submit a request. If they check all the boxes and meet all the state standards, then we present it to you, and ultimately you're the decision makers. So,
Any other questions or comments from anyone? And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Proper motion.
Second. Yeah, I second it.
And seconds it. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 We are adjourned.